with another number on it. And this number is not something that somebody's made up. This is a number that our own government has calculated as being the cost of leaving the European Union. But the government don't want us to know this figure. They've not released the papers. We were in Liverpool yesterday and the MP that spoke said she'd been allowed to go and see the papers, but she had to go into a private room, chaperoned by a security guard, and she had to leave her mobile phone outside. What's that got to do with democracy and telling the people what's going on? So we've gone on tour this week. We're travelling around about 2,000 miles, stopping at 33 places over 8 days. I don't know which day it is today, and I don't know how many stops we've done already, but I do know that we were in Manchester and Leeds and Liverpool yesterday. Now some of you might be admiring my hat. I actually picked it up in Liverpool. There was a chap called Paul Nuttall who gave it to me. And I said, well, Paul, surely you need this. And he said, well, no, since I won the gold medal in the ice dance at Pyongyang, I don't need it anymore. So we've come on the road to ask a very serious question. Is it worth it? Once we know the facts, and now we know the facts, is it worth it? Rather stupidly, I left my coat in the services at Telford the day before yesterday. And I've just run up the road to buy this one because it was pretty chilly. And I said to the guy, I bought this coat, what were the returns policies? He said, well, after 28 days, if you don't like it, or the zip breaks, or there's something wrong with it, you've decided you've changed your mind, you can bring it back. We can change our mind. Governments make U-turns, prime ministers make U-turns. There is no reason at all why the public can't make a U-turn. And that's what we're here to do on this tour, is to explain the facts to people and say to people, is it really worth it? Now this bus, as you can see, is a very low budget production. It's been funded by around about 700 people who put their hands in their pockets to take this bus on the road. There are no secrets about the money. The bus cost £6,000, the paint job cost £6,000, and the diesel and the driver took up the rest of the money. We're paying for our own hotels on our own sandwiches, so if anybody wants to give me a fiver for a hot dog on the way home, I'd be very grateful. Now we set off in London on our way to Edinburgh, knowing that in Edinburgh, the famous man of the city is Adam Smith. Now Adam Smith, his philosophy that working together... I beg your pardon, sir? We can't hear you. Would you like to come and have the microphone and you can tell us? I beg your pardon? You're very welcome. No, this is precisely what we want to do. We want to encourage conversation. If you would like the microphone for a few minutes, you're very welcome. I beg your pardon? After you. After, well, you're warming up? Okay, fine. You finish your coffee and then come and have a chat. Adam Smith said that we achieve the wealth of nations by working together with our friends and neighbours. One of my friends and neighbours said that he was travelling along the M4 the other day, and as he got onto the slip road on his way to Reading, there was a bedraggled figure standing there with his thumb out. We picked up that same chap on the way to Chippenham and on our way down to Bath, and we've actually managed to bring him along with us. Now you might be quite... Ah, Boris, old chap. What are you doing here? Is that working now, Boris?
Okay.
Okay. I didn't know.
Try not to damage my airport, boy.
I didn't know you were buying.
I damaged it in Edinburgh once.
Boris, you had a bus with a different number on the side of it.
Yes, I can honestly say that we're going to
Come on, spit it out, man.
We're going to save 350 million a week. It's exactly as I promised. Britain will save so much money from the European Union. So much money, we've even been prepared to put my face on it. We really will. 2,000 billion a week. Oh dear.
What do you make of that, Boris?
I think I owe the country an apology.
I think you do.
Let's see if I can do my best here.
As you can see, everything Boris does is really well prepared and prepared for.
We crowed, we blamed Brussels in vain, we jumped, never asking why. Brexit, I fell under its spell, a cock-up no one can deny. Don't you ever say I just walked away, I will always want you. I just live a lie, bumbling through my life, but I will always want you. I came in like a bawling wreck, then Theresa made me foreign secretary, but all I wanted was to break David Cameron's balls. Oh, all I ever did was wreck the country. Don't drop your phone here. Oh yes, I totally wrecked the country. I put the lies on Murdoch, Sky, the Bus, Mail and the Sun. It slowly turned, the truth has burned, and now it's all come unspun. Oh goodness me, don't you ever say I just walked away, I will always want you. I just live a lie, bumbling through my life, but I'll always want something from the European Union. But I came in like a bawling wreck, then Theresa made me foreign secretary, but all I wanted was to break Dave's balls off. All I ever did was wreck the country. Yes, I came in like a Brexit ball. I just chose my lines and I spun. It made me Brexit in my pants. It's a shame, you know, we have to ask. Brexit. Is it it? You want to make something of it? That's what they do in Edinburgh, isn't it?
Here we go. Come over here and have this one. What was your name, sir?
My name is Tom Gallagher.
Tom Gallagher. Nice to meet you. My name's Tim Evans.
No. Okay, I'll just say a few words about Boris Johnson.
Tell us what an oligarchy is first.
An oligarchy is something that taxes and controls you, but
No, it
doesn't
isn't.
Hmm?
It means a small group of people who control a country or organisation. You're supposed to be an academic, you don't even know that.
Just a minute, please. If we're going to have a discussion, there's no point in shouting at each other. This is all about having a civilised discussion. We've given the gentleman the microphone. Please give him a chance to speak.
I have written several books about the European Union, the latest one in 2014. But I was asked to say a few words about Boris Johnson. I think Boris Johnson, like most politicians, has his flaws, but I believe he is a very talented and, shock horror, principled politician who knows the EU from the inside out. Principled, even I find that one funny. Thought long and hard. He could become Prime Minister if he had gone along the European road. He's taken a different road, and I think the history books will treat him with far more credit than the likes of George Osborne, for example. He's a linguist. He has done a lot to help repressed people in different parts of the world in his 2 years as Foreign Secretary. Joanne Cherry, you know all about charlatans, don't you? The
No, please.
putting the law on people who criticise you legitimately for sharp practice. You, see, there we are. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble.
Thank you very much. We've got to move on. Thank you very much. No, Tom. I'm sorry, we've got a programme, but thank you very much for coming and speaking. I did actually hear a little story about Boris. It was in rather unfortunate circumstances. A friend of mine passed away, and when he went up to heaven, he was met at the pearly gates by St. Peter, who said, well, you've lived a very good life, clearly, because you've managed to get to heaven, but don't think it's all move will show me whether you're behaving yourself or not. You mustn't lie and you mustn't be unkind to people. And he took the friend of mine into the great hall, and it was lined from top to bottom with little clocks, and the hands on the clocks had all moved by different amounts. And under each clock was a little brass plaque. And he took this friend of mine to the first clock, and the hands were dead up straight at midday. And the plaque underneath said Mother Teresa. And he said, this is the sort of thing you've got to aspire to. This is absolutely the gold standard. Took him to the next clock, it had moved 5 minutes, and underneath it said Abraham Lincoln. And he said, he's been here for quite a long time and he's only told one lie, that's really good. And they went further down the corridor and more clocks and different amounts of a movement, until they got to a place where there was only a hook, a little brass hook with no clock. And the plaque underneath said Boris Johnson. And my friend said, well, why doesn't Boris have a clock? And St. Peter says, well, he does, but we've found another use for it. We've taken it out and we've installed it in God's office as an extractor fan.
Right, we need to move on. I know we've got a very important speaker, we've got lots of very important speakers, but Joanne Cherry is somewhere. You're SNP MP. You're heading off to the rugby later on, aren't you? Well, you can tell from my accent. You can't tell from my accent, actually, that I come from Wales. So I hope you do well this afternoon.
Thanks very much. So do I. But I think in the spirit of this afternoon's match between Scotland and England, we should acknowledge that today is very much a cross-party thing of opposition to Brexit. Now, I'm an SNP MP for Edinburgh South West, and I'm also the SNP spokesperson on Justice and Home Affairs at Westminster. And for my sins, I sit on the Brexit Select Committee. So Brexit has pretty much dominated my life since I went into politics 3 years ago. But it's a real pleasure to welcome this fantastic initiative to Edinburgh, which of course is a Remain city and the capital of our Remain nation. I'm very proud of the fact that 75% of people in Edinburgh voted to remain in the European Union. And clearly, as an Edinburgh MP, it's my job to do everything I can to keep Scotland in the European Union. But I also think it's in the interest of the whole of the United Kingdom to remain in the European Union. And I think the referendum, which was won overall by a small majority, was won on the back of lies and misinformation. And that's what's so great about this bus, is that the bus is trying to set right some of the lies and the misinformation that we were fed during the campaign. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that opinion polls seem to show across the UK that people are becoming more and more aware of the fact that the disadvantages of Brexit outweigh the advantages, if indeed there were any. And opinion polls show that in Scotland, support for remaining has gone up from the 62% cross Scotland vote 2 years ago up to 68% who want to remain. And even fishermen in Scotland, who many of them voted leave, are now getting concerned about their decision to do so, because like the rest of us, they have no certainty about what sort of deal they're going to get. But what they do know is that Theresa May is determined to take us out of the single market, which of course is where the majority of fish caught off the shores of the UK are sold into the single market. And that's why Norway, although not in the European Union, is in the European Economic Area, because it's of benefit to their major fishing industry. Now, I'm one of the MPs who have seen the Brexit impact assessments. Because I'm a member of the Brexit Select Committee and they were given to us in the first instance, I was able to see them and I was allowed actually to take notes, and I took pretty detailed notes. Now, I'm going to be quite frank about this because the contents of the documents have been largely leaked, and our committee have recommended to David Davies that they be put in the public domain. But those Brexit impact analyses, the analyses are carried out on a very different basis from the analyses that George Osborne carried out. So they can't be dismissed as merely scaremongering, because these UK government analyses have factored in what the UK government see as the advantages of leaving the EU, which they say are trade deals with third countries and deregulation. But even factoring those advantages in, the disadvantages of losing our membership of the single market and the customs union far outweigh those advantages. And you know the really funny thing? Back in January, the Scottish Government issued an impact analysis of Brexit, which warned that leaving the EU without a deal could lead to Scotland's GDP dropping by 8.5%, which is the equivalent of costing each person in Scotland £2,300 per annum. And when the Scottish Government issued that impact assessment, it was roundly rubbished by the UK Government. But ladies and gentlemen, the impact analysis produced by the UK Government on their own basis is even worse than the Scottish Government's analysis, not just for Scotland, but for the whole of the UK. Now, I was a lawyer before I became a politician, and I believe that we should do things on the basis of evidence. And I don't rubbish experts. I think experts should be listened to carefully and seriously. And I can tell you that the vast majority of the expert evidence that the Brexit Select Committee has taken since the referendum backs up the fact that the disadvantages of leaving the EU far outweigh the advantages. Now, I think the time really now is for some positivity here. What can we do? What can we do cross-party to stop this madness? Now, my party have led an initiative in the House of Commons, and we've invited other parties to join us to build up a coalition to keep the whole of the UK in the single market and the customs union. And I'm really delighted that the Liberal Democrats, Plaid Cymru and the Greens have joined the SNP in that. But what we really need is the Labour Party to come on board, and that's why it's so fantastic to see people from Edinburgh Labour here today. I used to be a member of the Labour Party, and I've still got many friends who are Labour, and I know that many people in the Labour Party want to stay in the single market and the customs union. So I say to them, have the courage of your convictions. These people have the courage of their convictions. Encourage your party leaders to speak out for the benefits of the EU. They're not just economic benefits, they're also social benefits, workers' rights, disabled rights, LGBT rights, women's rights have made the most extraordinary strides in this country as a result of our EU membership. So it's time for all opposition parties and those Tories who believe in the EU to speak up for the EU. It's never too late to tell the truth about something. This bus is telling the truth, and all of us have a responsibility to do that. So I would counsel people to get behind the cross-party campaign to stay in the single market and the customs union. Labour look like they're dancing towards the customs union. I really hope they'll dance towards the single market as well. But time is running out. And that's why the political party which I represent and the Government of Scotland is determined that Scottish people should eventually be given a vote to decide whether they want to be taken out of the European Union with the rest of the UK or to keep Scotland's place in Europe. And we have a mandate for that, and make no mistake, we'll use it if necessary. Even last week, or 2 days ago at Chequers, when the Cabinet were discussing the plan for going forward, the Secretary of State for Scotland was not invited to that meeting, and there was nobody to speak for Scotland. And what have we ended up with as a result of that meeting? Well, some of us were talking about it in the crowds earlier, and we described this idea of three baskets as the three basket cases. And really, this idea that you can have your cake and eat it is an utter failure by the British government to understand the whole basis of the European Union. What I don't understand is why, when the 27 other nations of the European Union, very proud independent nations like the Republic of Ireland and the French, feel that they can join together as equal partners in the Union, what is so special about the United Kingdom that we can't do that? And of course the answer is we've done it for 40 years and we should continue to do it. So let's keep this cross-party spirit going. Let's all join together and fight to keep Scotland and the whole of the UK in the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Now, I know you're going off to the rugby. I've got you a piece of cake. If you eat it, it'll be interesting to see if it's still there at half time. Thank you very much. Joanne, I agreed with almost everything you said. You talked about a second referendum. We're not asking for a second referendum. We're asking for a first referendum on the facts. And actually, we live in a representative democracy. We appoint people who know more about these things, allegedly, than we do. And it's their job to make a decision. And they have a meaningful vote in the House in September, which gives us something like 4 months or 5 months to get the message out. Is it worth it? And those of you taking photos today, please tweet them, please put them on Facebook. We're going over to Glasgow a little bit later on, and tomorrow we're in Newcastle and Doncaster, and I don't know where else, but somewhere down that way. I don't believe our next speaker has not made it. He's stuck in a traffic jam somewhere, which is Cami Day. Cami, are you here? You're not here. Fantastic. Yes, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Cami Day, your leader of Liberal. Labour. It was close. It started with L. Can I give you the microphone? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Cami Day.
Thank you very much. I will be as quick as I can. Just say thank you to Joanna. Joanna always knows that the door to rejoin Labour is always open. You're always welcome back, Joanna. I want to just say welcome to the Brexit Fact bus here again in Edinburgh. We're really proud to see the bus back here. Last thing the bus is here, my colleague Councillor Leslie Cameron, who's across here, spoke highly of the work in Edinburgh. Champion the cause to keep Edinburgh and the UK in the single market and the customs union. As the Labour leader in Edinburgh and deputy leader of the council, the only way for us to deliver an anti-austerity agenda is not to magic up the £350 million that Boris and Farage promised us, but to prevent the multi-billion pound hit that this country would take leaving the single market. Some projections suggest that this could be as much as £45 billion. £45 billion would be a direct impact on what we can do to deliver schools, hospitals and projects across this capital city. And let's not talk about this race to the bottom, about who can give the lowest taxes, who can call the large corporate companies to come to this country or whatever country, because ultimately that's an attack on workers' rights, on workers' terms and conditions. And to quote the great Robin Cook, who said, "We do not accept that the British people should be second-class citizens with less rights than employees on the continent." I won't allow the Labour Party that I'm part of to change that, and nor will I allow the Tory infighting to scrap key protections for workers in this country. Only a few months ago, the capital city here, then the chambers behind me, passed a motion to welcome EU migrant workers to this city. And at every street stall we do across the city, EU citizens speak to us about their real concerns. So whether you're here from Spain, you're Polish, or Greek, Italian, wherever you're from, each and every one of you are welcome here in Edinburgh. And only on Thursday night, my colleague Ian Murray MP, along with Leslie Cameron, the councillor, passed a unanimous motion up in the Southern Labour Party calling for the Labour Party nationally to properly debate this issue and support the UK remaining permanently in the European single market and customs union. This shows our commitment here in Edinburgh to do everything we can with as many people as we can to truly understand the real hard damage that Theresa May and her party's incompetence can and will bring to every one of us in the UK. The real worry of EU workers in this capital city of what will really happen: an increase in hate crime across this country, scaremongering by Leave campaigns, and huge tensions in cities across the UK. 2018 sees the year of young people here in Scotland, and we need to leave a real legacy for the next generation of young people in Scotland. To finish, I call on our city, our citizens, our business leaders, our trade unions to join us and support Edinburgh within the UK, within the single market and within the customs union. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cami. We're going from Finland. I can't even begin to pronounce your surname, but I do know that you're president of the Young European Movement in the UK, and you're studying here in Edinburgh. Would you like to come forward? Yusuf.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, the last name is Gavin Liemi. You're welcome to try. Indeed, I'm a good example of foreigners stealing British people's jobs at the European movement. Well, on the other hand, nobody wanted to do the job apart from me, so it's a bit like proof picking, actually. But yeah, I wanted to talk about serious stuff as well. So yeah, we see the 2,000 million here on the bus. But it's not only that, like, there's a lot of other things which are planned for Brexit as well. So we're talking a lot about General Terry mandates here. General Terry mentioned that 75% of Edinburgh citizens voted to remain. 75% of young people voted to remain as well. And well, I'm just gonna cite like young people in here. I don't think we can do that because as time passes, we're going to be left with a generation of people here in the UK who don't recognise the UK as their country anymore. The future they want to see for this country is a European future, and if they're deprived of that, I think what you're going to get is a nationwide identity crisis. The UK already has enough of the identity crisis. Especially here in Scotland, we can see that. You don't want any more division in this country. I think like Europe is going to remain a politicized question into the future, but like it's going to be because the generation that grew up in the EU will every day realize what they're missing out on. We made friends on the continent. We know how people in the Netherlands are doing. We can look to them and from our poor country that has lost 2,000 million each week, we can see what we're missing out on. It's going to be a streaming general elections in the future. Whichever way it goes, we're going to be talking about Europe. So, and then what the electorate that you're going to have is one which is increasingly pro-EU all the time. Young people are pro-EU, they will remain so. People who enter the electorate are going to be pro-EU. They're going to be demanding a European future for themselves. And you know, like it's going to be a divided country unless it is a country which is in the European Union. There's no way around it. That's also all there is to it. And if you're an MP, I think that's something for you to think about. We got a lot of people who are keeping their heads down. They're saying, well, we can't go against the will of the people. I'm not going to get elected if that happens. But actually, I think that supporting Brexit is the electorally unsustainable thing. Because you're going to get that electorate, and they're not going to forgive you. They're not going to forget who tried to sell them out. Britain is a country where people remember far back into the past who did what, and they are angry with politicians who they're angry with politicians who have already retired. So I think if there's one thing that people are going to be angry about long into the future, that's going to be Brexit. So if you represent a party which once tried to sell this generation out in 2018, I think you have no future in the parliament. It's simple as that. Especially as an individual MP, you're going to be getting that in each public debate that you go to in the 2020s. Like whatever you say in 2025 to a voter, all that they can hear is the voice of somebody who tried to take them out of the EU in 2018. And that's not a place where you want to be. So what I as a young person urge you is to think about the future. Yeah, there's only one future for this country, and that's a European one. If you're convinced at all by all of this, then I do recommend you to come along to a March for Europe. So that's going to be the 24th again of March. It's going to be at 2 p.m. starting from St. Giles, and we're going to go to Parliament. But that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. They're a scary bunch, aren't they, foreigners? I just had a message that since we've been travelling, we've raised another £3,000 in donations. And that's actually bad news for me, because it means we've decided to extend the tour by another 3 days. And I was going to go home on Wednesday, but now I can't go home till next Saturday. I'm going to need to have to wash my underwear, but that's too much information. So, finally,
We have persuaded Boris to come and actually have another little turn. Is that right, Boris? A funny turn or a? Let me take your microphone.
Thank you.
Boris, would you like to make your final apology?